everybody? Sven Diesel here. We're going to be tying up a ZGD Leech 17204. It's basically a leech. ZGD stands for zero gravity dubbing. The 17204 is just something I made up. So it's basically a leech pattern. We're using olive colors for this one. We've got a brass cone on there, and we're going to be using a dub brush that we made earlier today. And I'll put a link to that video in the description. But we got an Ahrex TP615 trout hook. This has got a longer shank, and we're going to be adding some 0.015 lead wraps. I don't really count these. I'd say for this size of hook, 15 to 20 wraps is about where you want to be. For sizes 4, 6, and 8, probably 10 to 15. Just a little something to help get it down. I know that 20 wraps of lead might scare some people, but this isn't really going to add too much weight. It's not like putting a 7/32 tungsten on. For our thread, we've got a Semperfli waxed flouro. This is an 8/0. You want something a little bit stronger because we're going to be tying in a few materials. So go ahead and start right there behind your lead, and then I wrap over my lead tag end, do some 45s through that lead, and then pull off that little lead tag end, and then end our thread right behind it, and we'll cut out our tag. Now we're going to lay down a little bit of thread base here on our shank. If you've got a rotary, just go ahead and spin it up. If you don't, just wrap it like you normally would. I want to cover up those lead wraps and then end with my thread at the bend of the hook. So just do a little bit of thread wrapping, and don't worry that the lead wraps are a little bit thicker on the shank than just the thread, because we're going to be tying in some marabou to cover that difference. This is the Premium Bugger Bou by Nature's Spirit. This is olive. I feel bad wasting this side, but preen off the side so we just have the tip here. And you want that to be roughly the length of the shank. And we'll cut out the very core of that just to help with the flowiness of this as it's moving through the water. And I'll just pinch it right there on the bend of the hook, and with like 4 or 5 wraps, I'll just palmer my way up towards the eye, about the midway point, and then we can cut out that stem. So you can see how easy that was to make almost a perfect tail. But we're going to add another contrasting color, a darker olive, in a different feather. But you can see this feather is not as a premium Bugger Bou, and so we're going to make the tips aligned just by using a method I learned from Tightline Productions. Just use the side of your scissors, pinch it, and tear it. You don't want to cut them because then your marabou will be, the fish will know, and we don't want that. So just go ahead and line it up with your other tail and your tips, and then just do some wraps backwards, trying to make sure that both marabou are on the top of the shank right where you want it. And now you can see how I'm kind of holding it up at an angle, and that just helps with that. And we will now just clean up the shank of this hook with some wraps, and that is easy on this vise. So I'm just spinning, but pretty clean. With most of my buggers, leeches, I usually like to add flash in the tail. 2-3 fibers of crystal flash is usually ideal, just to add some accent and attractiveness. So we'll go ahead and tie those in on my side of the shank first. I'm trying to get it almost like a lateral line coming out the back. That way we can make sure we fold it over to the other side and do the same thing. I also tie them sometimes where I put the flash on the top of the shank, so it's but most of those are when they're riding hook point up. For these normal riding buggers and leeches, I keep it on the side. But here is the dubbing brush we're going to be using. If you don't know how to make one, here's a 10-second video on how to do it. I put the link in my video on how it's like 5 minutes long, so it's fairly quick. But you can go ahead and play around with those. It's a lot of fun to make your own dubbing brushes. So we'll go ahead and we'll tie this in now just by the tip of this stainless steel, and just advance our thread up to the eye once we're done, or not, sorry, the eye, but right behind the cone bead. And then I've got a little bit of discrepancy there in the uniformity of the shank, and so I just add a little extra thread there, and I'll do a half hitch to get my thread out of my way, and I'm going to put it over here on my my cradle. So for this, I'm going to first put down a little bit of super glue just to bond everything together. The last thing you want is a couple hits on this, and the tungsten cone is sitting midway on the shank, and you've created a rattle. And so just by adding a little bit of super glue, you're keeping everything in place. And we're also going to be palmering this dub brush, and hopefully some of that super glue bonds with it. Now you could use the rotary function, but these rubber legs, I don't want to trap any of them. I want them to be flowing backwards. So as I polymer this around, I'm going to be preening these. I'm just going to do this by hand and preen those rubber legs back, because that's the whole point of adding those to this this brush, is to create a fan. I don't want to trap them onto the shank of the hook, and so I want to make sure most of those legs are going backwards squampously to I don't know why, I just have really good luck with these random legs, so I keep doing it. But do it however you want. You can also X-nay on adding those into your brush and tie them in manually. But I'm going to do a securing wrap here behind this, right here by the brass cone. Do a couple wraps in front, and I got a little bit more room, so I'll do one more wrap, and then we will tie this off. And since we do have a stainless steel core on this dubbing brush, you want to make sure to grab some wire snips to snip this out, unless you've got scissors you don't care about. But I always just get in the habit of using some flush cutters, and so you want to make sure you get all the way to the core and snip that out, and I just kind of pull it, and then we will go ahead and whip finish after just double checking our head there, maybe adding a few more wraps, and then we will do our single whip finish. So 3-turn whip finish is all you need. You could do a 10-turn whip finish, or you could do a double whip turn finish if you want, but I think that cone protects our thread, and we're also going to add a little bit of UV resin in there to just solidify the deal. And so I've got some Semperfli. This is their no tack UV, and I'm just going to use this tip to inject it up into that head. I'm just putting a little dab on this side, and I'll put a little dab on the other side. You don't need to cover it all the way around. This is just to seal the deal and keep everything in place. If you get a little bit on the cone, just brush it off with your finger, and just make sure you don't touch this marabou with that same finger and then cure it. Otherwise, what's the point of doing it? We might as well be using plastic swim baits. So anyway, pretty quick tie. You can see how the dubbing brush made it super easy. We already brushed out the dub brush, but after trapping maybe potentially some of those fibers, just brush it out again. Check your flowiness, check for any weird legs that you don't like, and if you don't like it, just pull it out. We'll probably lose some of these legs when fishing because we used the stainless steel core, but this is super buggy and effective. Should slay it. Tie some up in your favorite colors, make your own brushes. You don't have to make your brushes, but look at that. That's just buggy sexy right there. Should be well. So hopefully tie some up and they pierce some lips for you. Thanks for watching.